Welcome to the special podcast series of Bridging the Gap, where emergency managers and industry experts attending the 2024 International Association of Emergency Managers come together to discuss the current and past challenges facing emergency management. Join us as we explore insightful recommendations for improving efficiency in the field through the latest trends, solutions, and expert advice. Tune into the conversation that's shaping the future of emergency management.
Welcome to another edition of Bridging the Gap from the International Association of Emergency Managers Conference in Colorado Springs, Colorado for 2024. I'm Ron Crane with Summit Exercises and Training. And with us today, we've got Preston Wilson, CEM of Resilience Solutions Consulting. Preston, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Yeah, thanks for having me today, Ron. I have about 20 years of federal experience, right? And I started
I'm sorry. I'm just kidding.
I started off with working with an organization called Federal Highway Administration.
Yep.
And I started designing, I've designed roads and highways for Federal Highway, but back in 2004, 4 hurricanes hit. And those hurricanes was Charlie, Francis, Gene, and Ivan.
Yep.
And from that point, I became what's called a federal highway. I called myself an ER, emergency relief engineer. And so I got interested in the emergency management world. And from there, I joined FEMA Public Assistance. And I worked there for almost 10 years. But then I really found my passion where I started working with the FEMA National Dam Safety Program, where I helped communities be prepared for dam-related incidents and emergencies.
Tell us a little bit more about dam safety, because that's not something that most people normally associate with emergency management, let alone FEMA, until something happens. And then everyone is like, what's going on? Why didn't you do da, 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 da? So talk to us about dam safety and how you got into it and what you do and how you support not only the federal government but also the communities impacted, please.
Yeah, so I got into dam safety after understanding that FEMA housed what's called the National Dam Safety Program, and they were looking for engineers to come work with them, and I didn't feel that I had the dam safety background because I wasn't a dam engineer. However, what I was I was able to kind of work in the emergency management field for a little bit, and there was a connection that I didn't really know about, and I didn't even think I was going to be good at. Mm-hmm. But really understanding we have about 90,000 dams in the United States.
Really, that much?
Yeah, and that's only under what's called the National Inventory of Dams.
And are these in all 50 states, or so every state has a dam at one point or another?
Every state has several hundred dams.
Wow.
Right, including, and every state has what they call the state dam safety program that regulates dams in their state. Mm-hmm. Besides Alabama, and Alabama's kind of working on getting a state dam safety program there. And so the connection was, we started when I got there. There was a connection where each dam had to have an emergency, what we call emergency action plan.
Right.
Especially high hazard potential dams.
Right.
And high hazard potential dams mean a dam that if it looks at the consequences it's going to break, at least one person would probably lose their life. Mm-hmm. And understanding that, there was kind of a disconnect between the emergency management community, because the emergency management community kind of believed that since this plan was in place and the dam owners really have that under control, but the dam owners are only concerned with their dam, not to how that dam impacts the community around them.
So if I may, Preston, and for people that are listening to this, you used a very interesting term, dam owner. And I think the popular misconception is that dams are municipal or state or federally owned, but in essence, a good chunk of the dams out there are privately owned.
Yeah, most of them, you're right. Most dams are privately owned. by different type of owners. And when we say privately owned, it could mean a lot of different. It could be
Yeah.
a mom and pop shop
Yeah.
where there's, we own the dam, we own that reservoir, that little lake, or it could be a large privately owned, like a large utility
Yeah,
company.
exactly, like an electrical company or something like that.
Or a
Yeah.
water company
Yeah.
could own dams. So there's all different types of owners of dams in the United States.
So how you kind of got into dam safety, where you're saying, you've got an engineering background and you're also leveraging your emergency management experience, whereas it seems like some of these private owners don't have a connection, so to speak, in terms of the emergency management framework, or also they're more concerned with the engineering component or aspect of it. And is that what you found, where you are helping to bridge the gap between these private entities and between the federal government and public safety?
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's my company's motto. And I'll show you. I think I left one card, but on that card it says "Bridging the Gap Between Dam Safety and Emergency Management."
There you go.
Because I think it's huge. Because for years we looked at dam safety as being just the engineering part at the dam, but the events told us that dam safety is a shared responsibility.
Talk to us a little bit, if you can, about a dam issue that maybe people might not know of, and how do you respond to something like that, and what do you do to mitigate a potential hazard to a community with respect to a dam?
Okay, so dams aren't really the hazard, right? The hazards are those things that load the dam. And when we look at risk, we look at three things. We look at the loading, how that dam is going to be loaded. We look at the condition that dam is, how that dam is going to be hold up from the loading. And we look at what you just said, the consequences, right? And within those three things, we understand a little bit more of the risk platform that dam is going to give you. And definitely, we want to look at dams as not just being the responsibility of that owners, because dams, just because the owner owns the dam, it has a public consequence behind it.
Yeah.
So
In terms of load, is that water? Is that the material in which the dam is made, say an earthen dam? What is the load? And I would assume that's one of the critical factors in terms of dam safety.
yeah, when we look at those things that can load the dam, we're looking at those things like how much, like a flooding event, like a big precip event. We're looking at how this is going to stand up against,
meaning precipitation.
yes, and how these things are going to stand up against earthquakes, how they're going to stand up against some of those natural hazards that we're thinking about, how that dam is going to stand up against it. Because when we're looking at a dam or a levee, we're looking at not just how that hazard's going to perform, but that's going to make that hazard a lot worse if that dam or levee was to go.
So, in terms of that, and speaking of those different factors, have you responded to an actual dam emergency or to an incident, or perhaps an event that may have compromised the dam?
Yeah, like in 2017, one of the largest evacuations in our country that's non-hurricane was the Oroville Dam, and the Oroville Dam incident, and that's in Northern California. And so the spillway was going to erode in that dam, and the problem was there wasn't enough planning and preparedness behind it. So people really didn't know how to make the decisions when they need to make the decisions. That's why there's an importance of understanding your dams in your area and being able to exercise those things.
It's funny you say that, because and this is not a shot at California. California is pretty much very well known, not only nationally, internationally, as being one of the foremost leaders in terms of preparedness, incident management, emergency management. So it's really interesting to me and somewhat captivating from the standpoint of hearing that in California, of all places, they didn't have a good understanding of how to respond to a potential dam emergency, like you were just saying.
Yeah, and I think California is leaps and bounds in certain areas.
Yeah.
And certain areas like having emergency action plans for
Yes. Oh,
for
very
dams.
much so. Yeah.
And
I mean, fire scope. That's where it all started.
Yeah, so you have to give California their due there.
Yeah.
But however, and this goes to a lot of places, and a lot of places aren't putting dams into their exercising
Right.
curriculum. We stopped saying emergency action plan exercises because we saw a lot of exercises that just cut off and just focused about what they're going to do at the dam and not get the community involved. But I think it's a real important part is to have what we call a dam incident exercise, right? And getting the community and how the community is going to respond to that exercise, getting those communities involved.
You know, that's a great point. Even though you're exercising, like you said, dam safety, and you're there working with the owners of the dam, they're only concerned with what's happening with their dam, potentially.
Yeah, and I think that's an issue, right? And that's an issue. We're all getting in our silos, and it's hard to kind of cross the other silos because we don't completely understand that other silo. And I think that's kind of what I call my superpower, right? and so my superpower is I understand the dam owner side, the engineering side.
Yeah.
I understand that. I understand the emergency management side. Hey, let's get these people together so we can have a whole community response to it. And then after we do that, dams, they're a part of a watershed, right?
Yeah.
They don't work alone, and you have other owners and other things that are part of that watershed. Let's start getting these stakeholders involved, so ultimately we can make our whole community more holistic and more resilient.
Dams are part of critical infrastructure.
They are.
And in and of itself, that puts them on a whole different plane now in terms of DHS, FEMA, and everything else. Have you seen pushback from either the community or from the dam owners in terms of involving them in this? Or is it one of those where it's kind of like the old commercial, the V8 moment where, why didn't we think of this before?
Yeah. I think everybody's different, right?
Yeah.
Each community is so different, and that's what you really have to learn. Some places you'll get pushbacks. You get pushback from the highest level because they don't understand why it's important to kind of share that information.
Right.
And until they start, I'll give you a story. We were working with a community, and the floodplain managers said, "Hey, we need your dam inundation information to get our CRS credit, right?"
So the dam owners are being asked by the floodplain managers for their information, and I'm guessing the dam owners are like, "No, we're not telling you that.
We're not telling you that, right?" And until we got them in a room and explained to them how they could get how they could get their community reductions in floodplain, flood hazard insurance. Then they said,
"Oh yeah,
okay. Now this makes sense why we would share this information, and we don't have any problem in sharing this information."
But see,
but they just didn't know.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you're again, pun intended, bridging the gap between the owners who think that this is private information, needs to be close held, and then when you finally do help them understand why they need to release it, it benefits everybody. In the couple minutes that we have left, what do you want to leave the listeners with?
My thing is people have power. You can do something, right?
Yeah.
You can do something to make your community more resilient.
Yeah.
I tell you a quick story. One time we did an evacuation session where we were working with a community with the dam and kind of helping them think about what their evacuation is going to be. A librarian from that community came to our session because she was part of that county.
Yeah.
And that librarian was like, when she started, she was like, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know anything about the dams. I don't know why I'm here. But then we asked her when she was finished, she was like, what did you get out of this session today? She said, hey, our homeless population, they have encampments right down from the dam. Where our homeless population get their information is the library. Now let this library start working as being the conduits to get those people the information. So if we have to evacuate, they'll know what exactly.
It's a hell of a thing. That's great. I like that.
And so having her knowing that she has a role and responsibility, no matter how big or little, she can do something to help her community be more resilient from dam-related incident or emergency.
And you're empowering people, and she becomes an ambassador for you guys.
Exactly.
To help everybody else in the community understand the importance of what you're trying to convey. Talk to us about high hazard dams and some of the disconnect in terms of preparedness as well as awareness of those.
The problem with including dams and hazard mitigation plans is the checkboxness of including hazard mitigation, of dams and hazard mitigation.
And I don't think that's just unique to dam safety. I think that's throughout emergency management.
It is not, and it would be great if you went through the planning process, because there's a planning process that's necessary to really understand each dam in each jurisdiction and how that dam works. You have to understand that dam works differently in different jurisdictions. And you have to understand how how to not just mitigate from the dam, but to prepare, because dams, there's a point of dams in each of the 5 phases of emergency management that must be taken care of, especially when we have man-made infrastructure that interacts with the environment. And so the short answer is we have to understand how the dams work, and how the dams are going to work when they are loaded by these large storms that we're getting more and more of.
And again, we talked about it before at the start of the podcast about the majority of these dams are privately owned and privately held. What if you could wave a magic wand? How would you, again, unintended, bridge the gap between private ownership and all of the other preparedness, emergency management, and other aspects related to dam safety?
Yeah, and I think we just have to include it in everything that we do, right? And we have to definitely include it when we're talking about planning for hurricanes. We have to include it when we're talking about our exercise. We have to include it and get those expertise and get people like me being able to say, this is the data, this is what it means, this is how you can use it in your jurisdiction. And I think that would help people be more prepared. And it goes on all levels, right? The federal level, why aren't dams included on your flood maps, right? The local levels, understanding your dams and understanding how your dams work in your communities.
Right.
So on all levels, that's something that should be tackled to make them more considerate. And looking at the future, I think we are taking baby steps there, right? So I just got through working with on the project with the Corps, looking at regional risk and resilience in watersheds, right? Making a holistic approach to really looking at how your community could become more resilient, especially those with different water infrastructure.
Excellent. Preston, great that you joined us today. Very appreciative of it. And how can people contact you, and how can people get in touch with FEMA Dam Safety in the minute we got left?
Okay, they could contact FEMA. They could FEMA Dam, go on their website, go on just contact FEMA Dam Safety, and it'll show up. Contact me. I'm www.resiliencesolutionsconsulting.com, and you can get some more information about my services and some of the things that I do.
Awesome. Thank you. And again, folks, Preston Wilson, Certified Emergency Manager of Resilient Solutions Consulting, Dam Safety Subject Matter Expert, and again, Ron Crane with Summit Exercises and Training. Thank you again for joining us on another episode of Bridging the Gap. Preston, thanks again.
All right, thank you, Ron.
Take care.
Appreciate it.